the grandfathering. So we probably already have those numbers, don't we?
Don't have to do them again.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I'm wondering just for the, well, actually, there are a couple of things that I thought about just in terms of community response and involvement in the process. And one, is there a way to determine what we're going to need by when to be able to break ground on the school? If there's a sense that, which is what we got from the North Liberty group, just give us a school. We don't care if it's 800 students or 2,000 students. We want the high school out here. So if there's a way to determine what we need by when, what resources or operating amount we need by a certain time to be able to set a goal. Is there a way to determine that?
Michael, I think with our last, the next steps in terms of identifying annual budget projections and estimating what our unspent balance will be, that activity, that exercise will be able to answer your question.
Okay. And the other question I had was related to the community values. We had started having that discussion months ago. And I'm wondering if we have a sense of what the overall community values are, or like I just said about North Liberty saying, give us a school no matter what. But is that really the case, that they're willing to take a school no matter what if they don't have comparable programming? Because we're also hearing from community members in the City High, West High discussion that we're not getting the same kind of programming over here that we're getting over there, even though there's a $200 person difference. What's going to be the difference in programming between 800 and 1,600? So do we have a sense of that? That seems like it would be useful information to have.
That was one of the questions that was addressed during the task force meeting, and one of the statements that came out of that is the quality does not necessarily relate to size. Certainly we know that we could not offer the wide variety of, certainly not as many sections. You could not offer as many electives in a smaller school. But it's interesting, if you open a school at 600, I think there's something like 300 and there's 380 school districts, or 380 high schools in the state of Iowa. There's 370 some school districts. And I believe a 600 student high school would be somewhere like 46th largest high school in the state of Iowa. So I think we could offer a comparable core curriculum and a quality program. Certainly we wouldn't have necessarily all the electives and maybe not all the extracurricular activities.
But I think, the extent to which that reflects our community's values is a really important question.
Very
We talked
important
about
too.
it before.
Yes, we did.
And I think there are a couple of pieces to it. We need to help especially the part of our community that would attend that, would be in that high school attendance area, but really the whole community, but especially those folks, to understand what those differences are specifically. And I agree that there are a lot of fine 600 student high schools in the state. But then we need to get feedback from them. And I think a really intelligent survey tool would be valuable in addition to forums or whatever. And that piece of the process clearly should not be rushed.
Right. And, I think when we went through the task force recommendations one by one a couple of meetings ago, this was a large part of the discussion, and the second and third of their recommendations were revolving around exactly this point, Michael. And the board at that time expressed the consensus opinion that we needed to make that a priority, and that we needed to have those community contacts. We talked about wanting it, we changed, I think, some of the wording of the task force, because the task force wording was suggesting kind of a one-way street, one-way, we give information to them, but we wanted it to be a discussion, a dialogue with the affected community, with the affected portions of our community, specifically around the third high school, but also around issues such as keeping ninth graders at a junior level. So I think that's, that's part of the next step here, and we have to look to, as I think we stated in our consensus opinion, we have to look to the administration to outline exactly what that program is going to look like in the high school and what the program is going to look like at the ninth grade for the interim period, and then we need to start scheduling some communication with the community. But I think the first step is we need to get the administration's plan for what those programs are going to look like.
This is totally off that topic, but I was just going to comment when Tim had said that we're obviously going to have to be more aggressive in what we come up with. I was struck by the fact when I was looking at the numbers, I was looking at the option of no changes at all and what happens to the city high population and its use of available capacity. And I compared those numbers to option 3F, which is the most aggressive in moving 5 blocks into the city high attendance area. And that would increase by 71 students. That would increase City High's population by 71 students. And it would only increase the utilized capacity by 4%, which kind of surprised me. It went from 89% up to 93% of the available capacity, which from moving that many students didn't seem like a very big bang for the buck. And that's just a comment. I mean, I'm not saying yay or nay. It's just, I was surprised that it didn't accomplish more than that.
So what you're saying is that, we do need a lot more additional options
Yes,
to explore.
absolutely.
In order to make the difference.
I think part of the reason for that is, if I'm correct, is that City High, the projections are showing City High continuing to go down a few over the next few
As
years.
Jim said, 100 and,
107.
and again, those are U of I projections. The projections that we're using now are address mapped. So those are the kids that actually live in those neighborhoods, not to be confused with the number of kids that actually go to school there. Because you could have the impact of voluntary transfers.
This is probably as good a time as any, Lynn. Can you talk about these numbers are different from the numbers that we looked at the last meeting? And if people are sitting out there looking at these, they might be confused by that. Do you want to talk a little bit about
Sure.
the change in the projection numbers?
When we started talking about this, we were trying to project out to, I believe, 2018, and we do not have numbers. The U of I does not go out that far. Like I said, it's 5 years, and we did not have the numbers yet that we gathered October 1st, 2008. And we do our own projections as well. And we projected based on cohort survival of who was in the buildings at that time on October 1st, 2008. And we did that based on a cohort survival rate over a 3-year period of time. And that's what we built those initial scenarios on. Remember, I used the number 35. Didn't identify any building blocks, but we were looking for 35 students. And you just don't parcel out students that way. So when we went to figure free and reduced lunch or siblings, we thought we needed we need to go to the U of I numbers. They went an additional year that they usually don't. They added another year for us. So we need to stay with, I believe, the U of I numbers, keeping in mind that those numbers are based on who actually lives in the attendance areas, not necessarily who goes to school there. And that's the one. And when we compare the U of I projections to our actual enrollments, there are differences. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
But these are